Jasper Philipsen is the king of sprints in the Tour de France. 3 for 3 so far in this race with the help of Mathieu van der Poel on site here in Bordeaux, the sprint capital for the Tour de France, just second to Paris and the Champs-Élysées. And today, yes, again, Mathieu van der Poel led in his Belgian teammate Jasper Philipsen for the third victory of 3 sprints so far in this stage race, a 3-week stage race, and we're only at stage 7. There are 3 different stories I want to break down today. One's Jasper Philipsen, 2's Mark Cavendish, and 3's Biniam Girmay. All 3 of those guys rode so well today, and there was really not a lot happening in this 169.9 kilometer stage. We had one Frenchman right up the road from Arkea. He was joined by 2 others, and then those 3 were riding free for most of the day, but everybody knew it'd come down to a sprint. Pierre Latour was the last of the 3 French trio to remain. I think he was caught with around 5 kilometers to go. Now the point everybody was looking for was 3.5 kilometers out. Normally they neutralize the GC times on a sprint at 3 kilometers out. Well, today it was 3.5. Right before they made the turn to come over the bridge on this side of the river for the final 2 kilometers down here to the finish line, and that's when everything began to unload and we had another powerful sprint on our hands. It was Alpecin de Koenig who was really revving things up. Early on in the day, it was Jumbo-Visma controlling things. Remember, Jonas Vingegaard was in the yellow jersey. They were doing the GC work for their GC leader in the yellow jersey. Then it was over to the sprinters, and it was Alpecin de Koenig. They had 3-4 riders, and then that final lead out man, Mathieu van der Poel, at 500 meters to go. And if we're looking at the images, we have the shot from above and we also have the shot from head on, and we're looking at that. We could see Caleb Ewan, who was up there in the top 3 in the last couple of sprints. He's a bit lost. He has to find his way. The other 2 stories I wanted to talk about besides Jasper Philipsen was Mark Cavendish and Biniam Girmay. Both of those guys had to do things on their own. Biniam Girmay, if you're watching him in the overhead shot, you see his yellow and blue jersey, and he's just surfing his way through the group of sprinters to try to find the perfect wheels. He's on the blue and white Jayco Alula train of Luka Meskik and Dylan Groenewegen. He surfs off of Jordi Meus of their Bora Hansgrohe, and then he finds the wheel finally of Jasper Philipsen. It was Jasper Philipsen who had to swing off, because what we saw there in that final, normally Jasper would follow the wheel of Mathieu van der Poel right into the finish, but this time today Jasper had to kick his sprint a little bit earlier than he thought he would, because up the right hand side was Mark Cavendish, the last sprinter here to win when we finished in Bordeaux. He counts 34 stage wins in the Tour de France in his career, tied with only Eddy Merckx, and today he was going for the record. If he wins one more, he's got the all-time stage win record in the Tour de France, and he shot up the right-hand side. Jasper Philipsen had to shoot over and respond. Biniam Girmay was right on Jasper Philipsen's wheel coming up to the finish, and we had a great spin on the hands because it was Mark Cavendish who got the heads up on Jasper Philipsen, and Jasper Philipsen had to open up this huge acceleration to beat Mark Cavendish on the line. So it's Philipsen, Cavendish, and Biniam Girmay from Eritrea, the top 3 of today's sprint finish here in Bordeaux. Now let's talk about Jasper Philipsen, because we talk about this record of Mark Cavendish. That's great, but Jasper Philipsen is really making a name for himself. 2 stage wins in last year's Tour de France, and now 3 so far. He counts 5 stage wins so far, and everybody's heart's beating for Biniam Girmay from Africa, from Eritrea, really wanted to pull off something. We saw him over there afterwards. The Eritrean fans with their flags waving were cheering him on. We spoke to Mark Cavendish over there at the bus. Everybody was smashed around Mark Cavendish's bus, and he explained that he had some gear problems in the final. His chain kept kind of jumping from the 11 to the 12 and back up and forth. You'll have to hear that interview later. So if he hadn't had that, maybe he could have won today's stage. And then we spoke to Mathieu van der Poel over there at the Alpecin de Koenig team bus. Everybody was crowded around. Van der Poel does interviews in Dutch, does them in French, and then does them in English with us. Super kind, Mathieu van der Poel, for such a champion. And he explained that really all eyes are on them in the sprints, as all eyes are on Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar in the mountains for the GC classification. The pressure's on, but Mathieu van der Poel is able to deliver under pressure. He does so in cyclocross races, he does so in the classics, and he does so in these sprints, and he's doing it for his teammate instead of for himself. He's doing it for Jasper Philipsen. So what a great day of racing. Bordeaux never fails to deliver. This is red wine capital in France, and it's also the sprint capital. And today Jasper Philipsen showed he's king of the sprints in the Tour de France 2023.